notes. Just give me a minute. Sorry for that. Just had to share it once again. Yep. Now, for people who have missed the first session, I thought it might be a good introduction of what was blockchain. So I'm sure all of us would have heard about the blockchain when this Bitcoin came into existence in 2009. So for people who have heard about Bitcoin, would know what is blockchain, and I'm sure the 2-hour session would have given you enough and more introduction to what was blockchain. To just highlight a quick revision, I know you had a beautiful lunch, so I'm just going to be touching base to some things that we are refreshing from the previous session. So it was invented by Satoshi Nakamoto. He is the world's first cryptocurrency Bitcoin inventor. So blockchain is a disruptive technology, and it does believe in transferring information without any centralized control. So it is a peer-to-peer network without any centralized control. It was first coined out by the introduction of Bitcoin in 2009, where we did have the implementation of secure ledger of transactions. So I'm sure if you've heard about Bitcoin, Bitcoin was the explorative, or it opened the doors for blockchain into this world, So in 2009, when Bitcoin came, the concept of blockchain took a big it started becoming very famous across the globe. So the concept was with secure ledger, where once a transaction is placed, no one could alter it. And mainly it was used for a digital currency transfer, and nobody could double spend on the money that had been transferred. Now, for people who understand what a ledger is, so it's a basic accounting terminology because it deals with currency. So the ledger is something that you record a transaction in. So the same concept was introduced, and I think the same concept was taken into the Bitcoin concept as shared ledger technology. So you're sharing a ledger across the globe without a centralized control. Wasn't that very interesting? So that is the basics of blockchain. And how it all started coining is when a user requests for a transaction, then a block. So I think most of us are from the crypto background, so we do understand what the hash function. So a hash function was added to the block, and if the hash function was accepted by everybody in the session, they could be accepted, and a transaction would be complete. So that's a small representation. So I thought I might show a video which might interest all of us to understand what was the basics of blockchain. Bear with me for a minute. I'm just opening out my video in.
Blockchains are incredibly popular nowadays. But what is a blockchain? How do they work? What problems do they solve? And how can they be used?
Madam, you have to share the screen.
Blockchain is...
All right, I think I did the same mistake last time. Sorry for that. I think my video. Very sorry for that, Tibin. Thanks for reminding me. It's all good?
Yeah.
Thank you. Oh, just took me to an ad.
Blockchains are incredibly popular nowadays. But what is a blockchain? How do they work? What problems do they solve? And how can they be used?
I think I'm just getting the...
Like the name indicates, a blockchain is a chain of blocks that contains information. This technique was originally described in 1991 by a group of researchers and was originally intended to timestamp digital documents so that it's not possible to backdate them or to tamper with them, almost like a notary. However, it went by mostly unused until it was adapted by Satoshi Nakamoto in 2009 to create the digital cryptocurrency Bitcoin. Now, a blockchain is a distributed ledger that is completely open to anyone. They have an interesting property. Once some data has been recorded inside a blockchain, it becomes very difficult to change it. So how does that work? Well, let's take a closer look at a block. Each block contains some data, the hash of the block, and the hash of the previous block. The data that is stored inside a block depends on the type of blockchain. The Bitcoin blockchain, for example, stores the details about a transaction in here, such as the sender, receiver, and the amount of coins. A block also has a hash. You can compare a hash to a fingerprint. It identifies a block and all of its contents, and it's always unique, just as a fingerprint. Once a block is created, its hash is being calculated. Changing something inside the block will cause the hash to change. So in other words, hashes are very useful when you want to detect changes to blocks. If the fingerprint of a block changes, it no longer is the same block. The third element inside each block is the hash of the previous block. And this effectively creates a chain of blocks, and it's this technique that makes a blockchain so secure. Let's take an example. Here we have a chain of 3 blocks. As you can see, each block has a hash and the hash of the previous block. So block number 3 points to block number 2, and number 2 points to number 1. Now the first block is a bit special. It cannot point to previous blocks because, well, it's the first one. We call this block the Genesis block. Now let's say that you tamper with the second block. This causes the hash of the block to change as well. In turn, that will make block 3 and all following blocks invalid because it no longer store a valid hash of the previous block. So changing a single block will make all following blocks invalid. But using hashes is not enough to prevent tampering. Computers these days are very fast and can calculate hundreds of thousands of hashes per second. You can effectively tamper with a block and recalculate all the hashes of other blocks to make your blockchain valid again. So to mitigate this, blockchains have something that is called proof of work. It's a mechanism that slows down the creation of new blocks. In Bitcoin's case, it takes about 10 minutes to calculate the required proof of work and add a new block to the chain. This mechanism makes it very hard to tamper with the blocks because if you tamper with one block, you'll need to recalculate the proof of work for all the following blocks. So the security of a blockchain comes from its creative use of hashing and the proof of work mechanism. But there is one more way that blockchains secure themselves, and that is by being distributed. Instead of using a central entity to manage the chain, blockchains use a peer-to-peer network and everyone is allowed to join. When someone joins this network, he gets a full copy of the blockchain. The node can use this to verify that everything is still in order. Now, let's see what happens when someone creates a new block. That block is sent to everyone on the network. Each node then verifies the block to make sure that it hasn't been tampered with. And if everything checks out, each node adds this block to their own blockchain. All the nodes in this network create consensus. They agree about what blocks are valid and which aren't. Blocks that are tampered with will be rejected by other nodes in the network. So to successfully tamper with a blockchain, you'll need to tamper with all the blocks on the chain, redo the proof of work for each block, and take control of more than 50% of the peer-to-peer network. Only then will your tampered block become accepted by everyone else. So this is almost impossible to do. Blockchains are also constantly evolving. One of the most recent developments is the creation of smart contracts. These contracts are simple programs that are stored on the blockchain and can be used to automatically exchange coins based on certain conditions. More on smart contracts in a later video. The creation of blockchain technology piqued a lot of people's interest. Soon others realized that this technology could be used for other things, like storing medical records, creating a digital notary, or even collecting taxes. So now you know what a blockchain is, how it works on a basic level, and what problems it solves. Want to learn how you can implement a simple blockchain in JavaScript? Then check out this video here. And as always, thank you very much for watching.
Right. So hope you enjoyed that video. Going back to our PowerPoint. So that gives you an introduction to what the blockchain was. So that's how the Bitcoin also started getting implemented with the concept of blockchain. Now, for people who know about Bitcoin, you would have identified that it is a software-based online payment system. Now, again, it was found by Satoshi in 2008. Now, in 2009, it took a very big importance because people started doing payment using their public ledger with the help of Bitcoin. So it is similar like the normal currency. So what happened was people, instead of using the paper currency or the fiat currencies, they started using these online currencies and they started calling it Bitcoin. Now, the smallest unit of the Bitcoin started being called as Satoshi, which is 100 millionth of a BTC. What was it based on? It ran on a Bitcoin protocol. It started using mathematics unlike the conventional currencies where you had to have fixed an amount of fiat currencies or the paper ones. The biggest advantage of using Bitcoin was it was decentralized. It was easy to set up. It was anonymous. It was completely transparent. And the transaction fees were minuscule and the transactions were irreversible. So it could give that confidence in people to understand that their money could be transferred safely without any tampering or any loss or any transaction fee. So that was the big revolution that Bitcoin and blockchain brought in 2009. Now, that did open a lot of opportunity for the real world applications for blockchain. So in the last 10 years, blockchain has evolved to an extent where we will start using blockchain in things that we can't even think of. So technically today we are going to be discussing about the opportunities that blockchain can have, and some are still in research and some of them have been already implemented. So I would be going through the applications that blockchain have in the real world. The first one being the payment processing and money transfer. So I think all of us with the Bitcoin, we would have understood that many of the online finance people are trying to do their money transfer using blockchain because it makes transfer of funds to one to another very easy. Now, yes, it does go 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and most of the transactions are processed over a blockchain, and it takes minutes or seconds to do a transaction. That was the first revolution that blockchain created in the banking sector or the finance sector. So people were transferring money with transaction fee. That started getting eliminated with the help of blockchain. So that was the first revolution that blockchain created in the real world application. The second one was to monitor supply chain. Now, when we say supply chain, so I think most of the logistics, they have been using supply chain to a very large extent. Now, how can blockchain be helpful to monitor supply chain? Right. So in a normal supply chain, yes, we do have the transactions, we have to record them. There's nothing we can change about it. But what can we do if we have to maintain records that are paper-based or document-based? There's a lot of duplications or redundancies that come up for a transaction. So how do we record them? So by removing the paper-based trails, businesses was able to overcome the inefficiencies that supply chains had. Like, for example, tracking an item in real time. Let's say if you're sending it from US to Australia, how long does it? So all the supply chain could have been tracked real time with the help of blockchain. Now, it also helped businesses, even customers or consumers, to view how the products performed on a quality perspective, and also how they travel from the origin to the retailer. So that was a revolution for the supply chain industry. I'm sure there's a lot of companies who are implementing this in real time, and still there are concerns about it, but there is a lot of what you call research happening to see how we could incorporate the logistics and the blockchain. That was a second application that took a really big popularity. The third one was the retail loyalty rewards program. So let me a little bit give on the loyalty program. So people who have been flying on flights, or in Australia we have a grocery shopping center. So let me take a simple example. Let's say I go to a grocery store. I have been shopping with them. We have a loyalty card. So every time I shop, I gain points. What do we do with the points? Probably they give us might be 5% discount. They give us might be some products for free. But how does it go to a higher extent when people are doing it with bigger flights like Singapore? They've got KrisFlyer, Qantas has got their Qantas frequent flyer points. How do we keep them in track? So this is when the loyalty reward programs, people thought, why couldn't we incorporate this blockchain with the help of this token-based system? So what created a revolution was this became an on-go loyalty reward. So anytime you took your blockchain card with you, it could give you a point. So it doesn't matter you have to do it only at one point, one store, or it could be anywhere. So you could just pop your card in through your mobile phone and then start collecting points. So how could that have been done? It was done using a token-based system that rewarded the consumers and storing these tokens within the blockchain. So it would, keep the consumers or the customers' points intact till the person comes back the next time. So that helped eliminate the fraud. And many people, how they have the cards, they lose a card, then we have to again issue a new card. So the issues of losing a card and reissuing it, that was another big thing that could have been done. Like you can even do it with a mobile app, but what is the surety that the app, the points will not be lost? So suppose somebody's loyalty, like mobile app wallet or the mobiles change, how can we keep it intact? So this brought a revolution for the loyalty reward program. Then we have the third one for digital ID. When I was researching about this application for digital ID, I found it a very good explorative idea for blockchain, using blockchain, because I think identity theft has taken a big toll in all the countries now. I think Microsoft has been very innovative to bring this digital ID using its Authenticator app. So I think most of us have this, maybe if you use an iPhone or if you use a Samsung, we use thumbprint recognition, we use face recognition. So what is the guarantee that our IDs are not stolen? So this blockchain digital ID using Microsoft gave a big introduction to how we could save our own personal identity. Now, it was a big revolution to how we could implement this digital ID. So I think mainly we have our own personal things like our passport, we have our driver's license. How do we keep them intact without getting stolen? So there are stories where I have been teaching in a university where students have told them that their identity had been stolen. And a student, how students they keep their passports with them. They do not keep it in a safe place, or they don't understand the importance of it. A passport being used to re-authenticate somebody else. So there has been a lot of issues. So how can we overcome that bigger issues with theft, fraudulent activities? So I think the Microsoft's Authenticator app is one that has been implementing this using blockchain. Now, this gives every person or a customer a surety that their ID is not going to be duplicated by somebody else. So we do have people having the same name, date of birth also. There might be two people with the same name, date of birth. So now how do we identify? So it can be done securely by another identity, third thing, which we could identify. So that could be one way to keep your identity intact. So I think Microsoft has attempted to create a decentralized digital ID, which are still in the early stages. So it is in the area of research. So people who are researching on blockchain can think about digital ID. How can we use it? How can we incorporate it? And probably even into a education sector, because I work for an education sector, and I've been thinking, how can we use this uniquely for a student who is enrolling with us? We have a lot of students with the same name, but the date of birth might be different. The first name, last name is same. So how do we distinguish them? So this could be another revolution to identify and help implement blockchain. The fifth one was data sharing. So you might be thinking, all right, what is this data sharing for blockchain? Right. So I just want to give you an example of something that Australia has been doing. So one of the Australian very famous, their telecom provider is Optus. So what Optus does is, you know how we all have data? So Optus is running a campaign telling users if you have any unused data. So people are given a data plan and they are running a campaign saying, if you have any unused data, give it back to Optus so we can give it to the underprivileged people. Because now everything is gone online. With this unprecedented time of COVID, you can see that in India also, in Australia, everybody, they need a laptop, they need a phone, they need internet connection. So how could we give back the data? How could we share it in such a way? So Optus has been running this campaign for the last might be 6 odd months to say, asking people if they could give back their unused data so that they can give it to the impoverished people. So similarly, blockchain has given a big revolution into this data marketplace. This happened last year in November. So the cryptocurrency IoT launched the beta version of its data marketplace, showing how you could even share or sell unused data. You could bring your data back, or it can be even an organization's data. It can be it can not only be telecom, it can be data, it can be resources. It cannot be limited, it can be more. But I've taken an example which I found which was very interesting, which was data sharing. So it was how we could even sell data, unused data, to somebody. And I think that was done as a very preliminary stage where the enterprise data goes unused and the blockchain could act as an intermediary to store it and move this data to improve a host of industries. So that could be another opportunity. Again, that is also being found with Microsoft, where they're looking for opportunities, how we could keep the data intact, how could we share data, and probably even we can give feedback for it, So that could be one real world applications that we can think about for blockchain. And then I think copyright and royalty protection. In Australia, copyright is a huge thing. So even I work in a university here, and very clearly one student's assignment used by somebody else is plagiarism. So imagine somebody's thoughts, somebody's ideas, to what extent it's treated. So I'm sure now all over the globe, we have come to this consensus where identity and the information that we have, we need to keep it uniquely secure. So I think even with patent protection is also one thing which is becoming very difficult. So we all are in the researching world. We understand that, if we have an idea, if we share it with somebody, will they take it from us? What is going to happen? My idea has been stolen. I think that's a very common thing that happens in movies. I'm sure we had Srinivasan steal Mohanlal's story and make a movie and become famous. So we all know a lot of joking things, but still, how do we overcome, and in reality, the bitter truth, how do we keep them intact? So copyright and royalty protection. So how can we make sure that when there is a copyright and royalty protection, how can we keep it intact. So I think this can be even extended to patent, which I've not mentioned here, but I did mention that the copyright laws, I think all over the world now, is taken very seriously. Somebody copying another person's work is treated very seriously. So if you think about copyright, how can we keep them intact? So with blockchain, the copyright laws can be beefed up to a higher extent with the digital content downloads. And we can ensure that the artists or the creators get a fair share of what they have created. So we can use blockchain to share the idea into it, lock it up, might be keep it very secure, and might be save it under the name using the digital ID, or probably you can use patents to be kept safely there. So this blockchain would really provide real-time and transparent royalty distribution to bigger artists like musicians, content creators, movie designers. So I think that's one big challenge that we face in the real world when our idea is being stolen by somebody. It's such a, what do you call, frustrating situation. You create your idea and somebody steals it. So I think it would be bringing a revolution for the copyright and royalty protection using blockchain. And then digital voting. So this was so much interesting for me because I'm sure we all have been hearing about these issues of voting. So we have seen movies being built on it, somebody re-impersonating somebody and voting. So why not? How can we sure that our voting is kept secure? There's been a lot of fraudulent activities happening in the political arena, name it, whichever country in the world. So wherever there is power, there is this issue that we face. Though it is said it's the by the people suggestion, or by, like, we want voting to be done very fairly, but still there is fraudulent activities happening. Well, with the help of blockchain, we could do voting digitally, and it can be transparent enough. Yes, there might be a little bit of a very fine line there. How can we make it transparent enough that regulators would not be able, like, they would be able to see if something changes? So what the main concept is, not that you are trying to make everybody's identity public or transparent. The system where somebody's vote gets tampered is what we are talking about. So how can we make sure that our votes are intact and there is a very fair share of voting happening in the system? So this combines the ease of digital voting. So yes, we need to be ready with digital voting. So we can't use the paper-based one. We need to create the ballot, which is digitally having the machine. We need to have that, what we call internet connection. We need to have that blockchain connected. So it is a big area of research that people are researching on. And I'm sure in the coming days, you could see some talks on how can blockchain be used in businesses, how can it be used for education, how can it be used for many other sectors. And I'm sure this is going to open a wide range of ideas for people who are researching to see how can we ensure that the voting is done and every vote is truly counted. So that could be one extended idea of how we can put digital voting in. And then comes the real estate, land, and auto title transfer. So I think this is very much the current situation. Let's say if we go to buy a property, we need documents. We need the paper-based documents of the owner, the before owner, before owner, who owned the land ages ago. So how are we going to keep this intact? How are we going to be identifying? Because at the current stage, I think there's a lot of revolution that's happened. Many paperwork has been eliminated. We have gone a little bit digital, but not to an extent where in the years coming, how do we want to do our even real estate land transfer? So PEGA is one system that Australia is using. The real estate agents, the land mortgage owners, they all bring this PEGA. Already it is in application in Australia. So they have got the real estate linked in. So all the properties first need to be digitally, all the documents need to be digitally available. So the condition for any for this application to go in is we need to have our paper-based out. So we need to have all the paper-based first digitally available. If you're not going to have it digitally available, this is not going to be possible. So the primary issue that we currently face is lot of paper trails. Right, we have a lot of papers, we have documents, signatures of people missing, names of people missing. And I think that's another issue we face when name changes happen. We have this issue of names not matching. Might be when women get married, they have their maiden name, not their married name. So there's a lot of issues. So first, to eliminate that, we will have to start it from scratch, get the documents ready. Only then we can implement our blockchain into this application, real world application. So for example, once we get all our documents right, then it is going to be easy. If you're going to be buying a land, buying a car, buying a house, it's going to be easy to transfer a deed title. So that can be used blockchain. So instead of paper handling, the blockchain can store the deed or the title on its network, allow for a transparent view of the transfer, and it can be like a crystal clear picture of the legal ownership. So this has been in trial in Australia using the app called Pega or Pexis. There are two things that they have. So it's very, very smoothly running. For the last few months, we could see that people have done their real estate land auto title transfers through this app. So yes, you need to download the app and you need to have those documents sorted out into the system. Otherwise, it's not going to be possible. And then it came to food safety. So it was very surprising to understand how can we do real world application for blockchains with food safety, right? So I think this was a very interesting research, because for the health and safety in Australia, we need to understand where the raw materials all came from. So it does give a big connection to how can we trace food from where it came to your plate that you're having. Now, because the blockchain data is immutable, we cannot tamper it. So you'll be able to trace the transport of the food product. For example, let's say we have the rice from even within the state, within the country, from where does it come, where does it go to, it can be identified. So even which supermarket it went through. So to an extent where we can apply our supply chains concept into the food safety. Right. This is because we have a lot of contamination happening. We have a lot of adultery happening. So we want to avoid the situation. And it would be better we identify the source of the contaminant to be found considerably quicker than it can be now. So now, let's say if there is some contamination, let's say I go to a restaurant in a place. I'm just going to be naming a place like Kochi. I'm just going to say. So I go to Kochi, I go into a restaurant, and then I identify, all right, I had a plate of, let's say, might be fried rice. Now, yes, fried rice has got a lot of ingredients. So it's got some vegetables, rice, oil, the soy sauce, and all those variety of ingredients gone in there, Now, every ingredient, where did it come from? Where did it originate? What could have caused the issue? Or is it any ingredient that has caused the problem? So that can also cause a bigger issue, So it's very important for us to identify every ingredient, where it has come from. So I think especially for the health and food safety inspectors, or for that sector, blockchain can create a big opening, They will be able to identify where this came from and how could it be tampered and how can this be overcome. So that's another application for blockchain. And then we had the immutable data backup. So when I was finding this application for data backup, what I found was, I think it linked me and thought of the idea of the Malaysian Airways, which got lost into thin air. We do not know what's happened to it. We do not know what has even we do hear about traces about what has happened. Somewhere we found one piece, somewhere another piece. So how can we have an immutable data backup which can be perfectly done using blockchain. Yes, even though it's a cloud storage designed to be a go-to source for data saving, they are not immune to hackers. We still have this even infrastructure problems. But however, we can use blockchain as a backup source for the cloud data centers. For example, like Boeing is one of the biggest aircraft industry in the world. They can consider their GPS receiver on its plane, and that could resolve this concern. So it can help you identify, and it's on the cloud. At this stage, I think there's a lot of data that's been taken from the flight live and into their satellite centers. So how can we overcome that without any major issue? That could be another thing that we could think about, or might be area we can think how we can have an immutable data backup for big or the aircraft industry, or even it can be for any military, it can be for defense, things like that. And then came the bigger concept of tax regulation and compliance. So I don't know how many of you all realize that when the cryptocurrency was introduced, we did have cryptocurrency in the good way and the bad way. So if we want to use it for tax regulation and compliance, we can use blockchain. Now, when we talked about transparency and immutability, like for example, you know how marijuana is used these days, it can be used for good purpose also. It's not only that marijuana can be used for bad. They're researching to use this thing for cancer treatments and other bigger diseases that we want to overcome. So how can the tax regulation and compliance use blockchain? So yes, they can use blockchain as a means to record the sales and demonstrate to lawmakers that they are abiding by the local, state, and the federal law. So it can be any part of the country, as long as people are using it in a proper way, it can be used extensively. Now, very important is all tax collection. So I think in every country we have tax that we pay. I think only there are some countries where they evade tax, so they don't require tax. So for any tax collection, the revenue system can use this blockchain so that everybody has a fair share of the tax to the federal government, assuming that they are profitable. So it can be a big revolution for the tax regulation and compliance. It can be for the state revenue or for the nation or even for the country. So it can be used to even regulate the tax in a very immutable way. And the next one I would take into consideration is the workers' rights. I don't know how many of you all have heard about this big issue that happened about Coca-Cola in the US. So there were 25 million people who were forced into labor with very minimal wage. So it was a very interesting fact that came into picture that Coca-Cola was using illegal labor to get their jobs done. So another interesting fact for blockchain is to bolster the rights of workers around the globe. We don't want anybody being underpaid. So it happens everywhere. Even Australia, we had a big, chef, very low payment for the workers that he had. And it happens that many of the international students who come to study here are exploited by the work rates. So how could that be overcome? So that can be done using the ILO, which is the International Labour Organization. So they have found that Coca-Cola in the US did do a big scam on that. So they are now working with some partners on blockchain registry to complete with smart contracts. So I think we did learn briefly about smart contracts. I would be quickly showing you how a contract is. So smart contract is exactly like a contract, but which is digitally created. I would be showing a video very soon. So I want you all to understand what a smart contract is. And that is one of the very, very famous concept that is, it's like a hot trend that's happening in the blockchain world. So there are many ways that you can incorporate blockchain. But I think smart contract, the word smart contract, keep a word out for you. I think when you're going through this 5 days of your program, you might hear this a lot. So it is like complying. It's like a actual contract that is written digitally, which allows you to improve the labor policies and coerce the employers to honor the digital contracts with their workers. So that can be another big opportunity for people to keep the workers right. And the biggest revolution I can even think of is a medical record keeping. So if you think about the number of records that are across the globe, think about the hospitals, think about the number of patients and the number of records that each person or each patient has. So the good news is the medical sector has been now moving away for paper, and I think most of the hospitals, even now in India or overseas, they have gone to the online record keeping. So if you go to a doctor, the doctor is in front of a computer trying to write a prescription, not the olden days where we have shabby handwriting of doctors, where you have to bring a crypto person to sit and understand what they've written. So it is all gone digital. Okay, so we can enter into the system, they print it, they sign it. So we can do medical record keeping also using blockchain. So however, blockchain even offers more safety and convenience for addition to storing patient records. Now, yes, the patient might have a big, let's say, elderly person has got multiple issues. So how can we overcome that? So how can we gain control of them? So yes, the HIPAA, according to the International Health, they have allowed the strengthening of blockchain to design and to protect the patient privacy, because we don't want that to be tampered. So that is also another thing that they're working on. But the medical record keeping also has taken a big revolution in blockchain has helped people improve their record keeping for hospitals, for bigger institutions and smaller services also. Even from a small clinic to a bigger hospital and an enterprise, we can do, even let's say if a patient is transferred between states, we can keep it digital. So that could be one big exploration for medical record keeping. Another one was the weapons tracking. Now, it's very, very important. I think people who understand or hear about the news that happens in the US, how we hear about people having weapon and they use it at their own discretion. So one of the very hot button topics at the news is the gun control and the weapon accountability. That is what we are currently facing. So the blockchain could help us monitor who has a weapon and keep their licenses. We can make it transparent, unchanging, and we can enforce law. It can be federal, local, state, doesn't matter, to track a gun and the weapons ownership. So as well as keep a record of weapons that are sold privately. So it can be country based. It doesn't have to be publicly in the domain. At least we know that somebody is keeping control of the weapons that we have around. And that can help resolve a bigger issue of weapons, which is being illegally used. And then comes a bigger extension to the wills or inheritance. So what can we do? All right. So I think we all have this, we want our will or inheritance to be transferred to somebody. So blockchain help your worry, put your end of life concerns to rest. So you want your will to be transferred. So these days, we don't know, anything can happen to anybody. So at this stage, we say, okay, we have a property, then what do we do? Do we have to give it to our children, or what will happen? So we can very securely use a blockchain. Can I get somebody mute the mic, please? I think somebody's got their mic on.
Sorry for interrupting in between. Participants are kindly requested to mute your microphones. Thank you.
Yeah, it's done. It's done.
Thank you for that. So it's very important to identify how can we transfer our will or inheritance to our own loved ones. Right? So, for example, we do not have a paper-based, we want to move it into a digital one. Again, this goes back to the same concept of real estate and the deed title transfer. We need to have everything digitally set up, and we can use a smart contract. So smart contract is one way of a technology that can be used to do our inheritance transfer. For example, let's say you can say that, okay, if my grandchild reaches this age, I want to transfer my will or inheritance to my kid who is a legal age, it can be very crystal clear. You don't need a lawyer to come and explain to you what has happened. We see this dramatic situation where somebody passes away. You've got this lawyer coming and explaining to you. I'm sure lawyers will be upset with it, but this way we are going to technology, we can clearly see nobody can tamper a lawyer, nobody can tamper blockchain. So it leaves no question to who will receive what when somebody passes away. So I know this will make a lot of people lose job, but this is what we are here. In an age, we had lift operators. Nowadays, we don't need lift operators. So we've come to this age, we adapt to changes. And that's the bigger advantage of having technology around us. And with blockchain in the last 10 years has brought a lot of transformation to think and look at the ways that we think of differently. And then comes with equity trading. So for people who are very much very active in the share trading or the stock market, this can help. Blockchain could rival or replace the current equity trading platform to buy or sell stocks. So it might be a very, very big change, but nowadays it's not impossible. So blockchain helps validate and settle transactions so quickly that it can even allow you not to wait for multiple days. Investors currently we are encountering, every day we do an investment, we'll have to wait, or the closing, opening trade, sharing trade, then might be the next day it might fall. So all those things, we can overcome by using this equity trading. And this helps you access your funds for the purpose of even reinvestment or withdrawal. So we do not have to go for through a broker or a stock broker. You can I think nowadays, many of us are doing our stock trading ourselves, right? But you need to know. If you know how to do stock, or if you know how to do share trading, you can do it online. You just need that login. You yourself can watch how the stock market is, and you can reinvest, withdraw. So I think Bitcoin was the same concept. People were very vigilantly watching what was happening and incorporating it to an extent where they could identify how they could improve their share trading or their stock market. So blockchain can make it more helpful if you have a digital access, and also as long as you understand how to do it, blockchain can keep your things safe and secure. And then comes the managing Internet of Things. So this is the happening concept that's happening. So I think many of us are working with cloud. We are working with even online data. And now with COVID, I think the IoT has taken a big jump into the implementation. So I think the networking giant Cisco was very much very interested to understand how, or they have been incorporating this blockchain-based application, and that would monitor the IoT networks, which is the Internet of Things. Now, yes, what does IoT describe? It describes the wirelessly connected devices that can send and receive data. So, for example, we want somebody, when we have, like, let's say, I think nowadays, even people can see what is in their fridge from their office. They just click on their phone. They see within the fridge what is sitting there, and then they go to the store to buy. So we have a lot of IoTs coming in, but nowadays even people are controlling who can enter and leave a property with the help of IoT. So I think nowadays, most of the countries are now started incorporating digital locks, digital online IoT, even security locks, where you can even monitor who's coming into your property or your car, things like that. So we could use the IoT Cisco is working on it with the help of the blockchain technology to a higher extent, where you can even identify who is on your phone, who's on your property, who's in your car. So I think it is just a connection to help you, to keep things very transparent, and you can control your things, not worrying what is going to happen around you. So that could be a bigger exploration for research also, for implementation also. How can we use blockchain to monitor the IoT? And I think Cisco is working on it, and I could see that a lot of implementations that's found. If you go research, you could see that there are a lot of implementations already, and many countries have already incorporated it to an extent with the help of blockchain. And then the next one would be expediting the energy future trading and compliance. So I think this is a very big state of the nationwide issue that we currently face. So energy industry is also getting smart with what they're doing. So similar to the benefits, like how we could do equity trading or the share trading, blockchain can help the energy companies also secure their future trading comparatively faster than what they currently do. So what they do is they can log their resources with the help of this regulatory compliance, and it can be either water, electricity, or whatever, you can even identify. So we could share your resources with this help of blockchain. So this has been helping energy companies regarding to log the resources and maintaining regulatory compliance. To an extent, yes, there's a lot of work behind it. It is still a huge research area and implementation area. But once it is in, let me say, it's going to be very easy for this energy companies for maintaining their compliance and for their trading. So it's going to be opening big doors for like smaller companies where they can maintain or monitor their own energy consumption or compliance. So it's going to be a huge opening to the door of energy industry if this blockchain could be incorporated. And the last two, which is securing access to the belongings. So smart contracts is what I have been talking about, and I think a couple of times I've mentioned about smart contracts. So we can actually secure the access to our belongings using the smart contracts, which gives us an ability to keep our information secure. It can be either for a business or for a customer. Now, as a customer, what can we keep things safe? We can exactly do what I said before. You can control who is entering your property. Let's say you've given your car repair. You want to give access to only a specific mechanic. You can also do that as a specific mechanic access to. So this is a big future implementation that we can think of. But yes, we need a digital key for it. So without the digital key that you have, nobody else can access, no service technicians, nobody can enter or access your content, or you cannot enter the building, car. So again, securing access to belongings. So I would say even like, for example, the locker system, we can keep it secure. So nowadays we have bank lockers with digital locks. To an extent, we can even incorporate blockchain to locker access. So we have the digital key, only me, not like might be somebody else, probably a banker. But again, that can be a bigger revolution in how to think, because these days, property, documents, jewelry, valuables, we want to keep it secure and safe. So again, wherever there is issue, there's theft happening. So how can we securely keep our belongings? How can we incorporate it? So there's a lot of areas that we can have, because if you see, there are millions of applications of blockchain, but because of the time constraint, I've really tried to bring important and very robust ones, which I found. There are 50 odd ones, but I didn't want to bring in, because I wanted to make sure that I've given you very crisp information, and so that you all can go back and ponder on it. And in the remaining 4 days, you can think, okay, how can I open my dose of research into blockchain, or how can I implement it in my understanding? So though I'm saying this is the last application, I've got more to say. Not that I've finished my session, I've got more information that I've created in. So the last application for today I have taken was the tracking of the prescription drugs. So I think this is a big revolution that doctors will need, or even the pharmacy companies. So let's say I have been having a medicine for a long time, right? Now, yes, to an extent, I know every time I have to, in Australia, I can't go buy a prescription drug. Yeah, I'm sure in India also the same thing. You have to go to a doctor to have a prescription. Only then you can go into the medical center to buy it. But what if I am a regular user of a particular drug? Every time I need to go see a doctor, I need to get the prescription. I pay the doctor too. I have to pay money for consultation. And same thing happens here. Every time I go say to a doctor, I have to pay him consultation fees to get one prescription, which I have been using it for years. So why can't we make this very easy for people, for patient tracking? So yes, so blockchain could be used for transparently tracking prescription medicines. So in the world where prescription returns do occur, so I was telling you, a person who has recurring occurrence, they have to go to the doctor, but we don't want any counterfeit medications to impact them, somebody who has been having it. So there might be this lot of fraudulent activities. They might go into a medical center, or like, let's say, into a pharmacy. They might give a very local generic brand. It might not suit that person. So things like that, it makes it very difficult. So blockchain offers these big pharmaceutical companies the ability to track the product based on the serial batch number and ensure that the customers are getting the real deal when they pick it up from the pharmacy. So Merck is one of the very famous pharmaceutical company across the world. They're currently testing such a system for prescription drug returns. So this concludes my application that I really wanted to put it crisply and clearly for you, but I've not ended my session here. I've got more to go. So this gives you an idea of where we can apply our real-time application with blockchain. But I wanted to add something to my session to give you some added value, because when you leave your session tonight, I want you all to get this information. All right, this is what I'm going to be expecting for the next few days. There are multiple ways that we can have, there are multiple ideas that we can do. And these are some of the things that we want to ponder on. So might be for your rest of your sessions, you might start listening more on these words. There are multiple ways you can implement your blockchain, and cryptocurrency is one that we've been hearing. Shared ledgers, distributed ledgers, and the smart contract. I'm going to be talking about smart contract because that has interested me a lot, because I have been working in this education industry, and I did a presentation a couple of weeks ago to a university, and I did mention how we could use smart contract for even tracking a student transcript. For example, I have been doing my batch, let me start from year 10. I did my year 10 in Coimbatore. Then I did my year 12 again in Coimbatore. So let's say if I went to another city, I went to Kochi, and I did my year, my bachelor degree. Let's say I assume I did it from Kochi. So how do I carry my transcripts? So paper-based ones. I don't have any digital format. Can we get this revolutionized? So I was talking to an education provider how they could use smart contracts to even transfer the transcripts from the school to the university, from the universities add on the transcript to the job people, So you can use smart contracts to make sure that the person's academic records are kept intact, because we don't want any fraudulent documents being created. We don't want any our documents to be tampered. And it's a very common thing that we lose our transcripts, we lose our degree certificates. So this is a very common fact, because I work in the education industry. I work for an administration, and students come and say, oh, Cynthia, we have lost our degree certificate. So I say, can't you go back to universities and get a copy? So how can we overcome that? So this is what interested me a lot. The smart contracts can help you keep your transcripts intact, and you yourself as a student can keep it very much intact. So what is a smart contract? It is a computer protocol intended to facilitate a contract. So what I'm going to do, I know I did a lot of talking. So very soon I will be showing in video so that you all can break the monotonous of me only talking. I also don't like my, sessions where I only talk and I don't hear other people. So I thought, let me break the session and give you another video. So before I go into the video, I just thought I'll give you a little bit of introduction about a smart contract. So smart contracts allows the performance of credible transaction without third party. It was found by Nick Szabo, an American cryptographer and a computer scientist person who did coin this in 1997. So though it says 1997, but it has been used variously a lot in the last 5 years. So I'm just going to show the video very soon. Just bear with me for a second. So hope you can see my share.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm just checking my computer's there.
you can see.
Yeah. Might take 2 seconds. Sorry for my internet. It gets a little bit busy during this part of time. You've got an ad in. Sorry.
You can manage your team's work easily with Monday.com. Just go to Monday.com and start tracking any project or
Hope I get
workflow
this
in
ad
minutes.
quickly out.
Yeah, minutes. What? You don't
Smart contracts are very popular nowadays. But what are they and what problems do they solve? The term smart contract was first used by Nick Szabo in 1997, long before Bitcoin was created. He is a computer scientist, law scholar, and cryptographer, so I'll spare you his exact words. But in simple terms, he wanted to use a distributed ledger to store contracts. Now, smart contracts are just like contracts in the real world. The only difference is that they are completely digital. In fact, a smart contract is actually a tiny computer program that is stored inside of a blockchain. Let's take a look at an example to understand how smart contracts work. You probably are familiar with Kickstarter, the large fundraising platform. Product teams can go to Kickstarter, create a project, set a funding goal, and start collecting money from others who believe in the idea. Kickstarter is essentially a third party that sits in between product teams and supporters. This means that both of them need to trust Kickstarter to handle their money correctly. If the project gets successfully funded, the project team expects Kickstarter to give them their money. On the other hand, supporters want their money to go to the project if it was funded, or to get a refund when it hasn't reached its goals. Both the product team and its supporters have to trust Kickstarter, but with smart contracts, we can build a similar system that doesn't require a third party like Kickstarter. So let's create a smart contract for this. We can program the smart contract so that it holds all the received funds until a certain goal is reached. The supporters of a project can now transfer their money to the smart contract. If the project gets fully funded, the contract automatically passes the money to the creator of the project. And if the project fails to meet these goals, then the money automatically goes back to the supporters. Pretty awesome, right? And because smart contracts are stored inside a blockchain, everything is completely distributed. With this technique, no one is in control of the money. But wait a minute, why should we trust a smart contract? Well, because smart contracts are stored on a blockchain, they inherit some interesting properties. They are immutable and they are distributed. Being immutable means that once a smart contract is created, it can never be changed again. So no one can go behind your back and tamper with the code of your contract. And being distributed means that the output of your contract is validated by everyone on the network. So a single person cannot force the contract to release the funds because other people on the network will spot this attempt and mark it as invalid. Tampering with smart contracts becomes almost impossible. Smart contracts can be applied to many different things, not just on crowdfunding. Banks, for example, could use it to issue loans or to offer automatic payments. Insurance companies could use it to process certain claims, and postal companies could use it for payment on delivery, and so on and so on. So now you might wonder, where and how can I use smart contracts? Well, right now there are a handful of blockchains who support smart contracts, but the biggest one is Ethereum. It was specifically created and designed to support smart contracts. Smart contracts can be programmed in a special programming language called Solidity. This language was specifically created for Ethereum and uses a syntax that resembles JavaScript. It's also worth noting that Bitcoin also has support for smart contracts, although it's a lot more limited compared to Ethereum. So now you know what smart contracts are and what problems they solve. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, hit the like button and get subscribed. And as always, Thank you very much for watching.
So that was a small video on the smart contract. Just going back to my PowerPoint. So I hope you enjoyed the video of smart contracts. So I'm just going to be now exploring what could be your future topic of interest. So we could have a lot of opportunity that we can look at. So it can begin with consensus algorithm. How can we do cyber attacks on blockchain? How can we overcome? Like, these are some of the research topics that even I have been thinking, there's a lot of things that we can think about. Economic impact on cyber attacks, then security and trust on permission blockchains. So these each of them are itself a research area. So if anybody is really researching, y'all can dig more into this. The scalability of blockchain, which is another big thing. How can we put it onto the cloud? How can we increase it? The reliability analysis of blockchain-based system and smart contracts, which is my area now. Visualization of blockchain. Then how can blockchain be used for banking and finance, supply chain, consumer products and retails? How can we use it for government? How can we use it for automation? How can we use it for medicine, healthcare, travel, transportation, Internet of Things, agriculture? So I think there's a lot more which we can talk about, which I have not incorporated. But these are all big doors that it can open for you for research. So it cannot be only limited to banking sector. You can think about anything and everything. So tomorrow, if you are thinking, how do I get my coffee safely done? How do I get my transport safely done? How can I? So anything, we can think about something wherever there is an intrusion possibility. So how can we get it done? So we could use a distributed ledger, we could use even a shared ledger, or we could do even a smart contract. So there are a lot of ways. So only thing is we need to identify what could be the area, and we need to identify how can we do it, because there are a lot of researchers around the world working on this topic. And I think it's a very beautiful research area that we all can think about. Now, coming back again, you might think, oh, we have been only talking about only positives of blockchain. The other day when I was presenting to a very elderly group of audience, they asked me this question. Cynthia, you're telling that blockchain is safe. Don't you think even that can be broken down? Every day, anything can be broken down. So we have smart hackers who can hack even the best technology. So we have got good hackers and we've got bad hackers. So blockchain is not foolproof. So I can't say that always if you use blockchain, everything is 100%. It is an extremely young technology. It has its own imperfections. It has its own bugs. So it might, if a contract has no bugs, perfect. But how can we sometimes, even that can lead to mistakes. So bugs can be exploited by scammers. So as there was a case with the DAO hack, money was put into a smart account with a mistake in its code and it got stolen. So because it's a very novel technology, that brings a lot of questions to the table. How far are we trusting on blockchain? How much illegal activities have happened using blockchain? So I have been only talking about the positives, but did we know in the last 10 years, drug dealers, even the terrorists have been using blockchain for transferring data. So it's not that only positives happen, it can happen even for antisocial activities. So we are thinking only, positive, but there are negatives also here. So we have to identify that though we say blockchain is a foolproof, but to an extent we have to understand that it can be used even for antisocial purposes. So there are a lot of questions that will come up. I'm sure I'm opening it to you all. How will the government decide to regulate such contracts? How will they be taxed? What happens if a contract can't get access to the subject of the agreement? If something unexpected happened, if some bug happened, millions of money gone lost, what can happen? If this was happening in a traditional contract, it could be rescinded in the court, like we could withdraw it. But with blockchain, where is the question? Where is the contract? No matter what, do we have a code of law and policy around us? With this, I think I will conclude my session. blockchain sees a lot of smart contracts merging into a lot of hybrid paper and digital content, where the contracts are verified via blockchain and substantiated by physical copies. Now, the smart contracts are developed in association with cryptocurrencies, so hence the financing and banking sector have taken a very big toll. Voting has also been incorporated with this use of smart contract. Some of the governments, nevertheless, are planning to implement it so that it's accessible and transparent. Supply chains can also be used to monitor, for example, real estate, healthcare, taxes, insurance companies, and countless industries are having benefit from this smart contracts and blockchain. They have many benefits to offer, but this is not limited. I would like to just put some references that I've gotten. And thank you all for giving me this opportunity to share my areas of expertise on blockchain and its real world applications. I think I would have finished a little bit early. I'm not sure if that would be an issue.
Thank you so much, Cynthia. So we have
No
a
worries.
bunch of questions here. So
Yep.
I will share the questions now.
Yeah,
Just a minute, let me share my screen.
sure.
Yeah. I hope you can see my screen.
Yeah, I can.
Thank you.
That's a very beautiful question. First one. Whether blockchain can be used in matrimony fraudulent deduction. Oh yeah, very, very interesting topic. Yes, I would say yes, because I think nowadays the matrimony is coming through online. We have, I'm sure in India we have, I don't know the exact names because I didn't use one, so I didn't know. There are a lot of matrimony sites online now. So we can, as long as we have the smart contracts in, so we can try even the simple contracting in. So we could create a website which uses high level digital key, and we can incorporate every person's unique data. So if every of our, let's say for example, let's say when we're talking about matrimony, we'll be talking about the person's qualifications, the person's country of existence, because I think it's a very, very for our culture, being an Indian, I myself understand that when it comes to the marriage thing, we usually look for like some sort of reference, like do we know anybody who knows the person. So yes, we can do it. It is a big good area of research. I've noted it down. I've never thought about it, but very innovative idea, whoever given that. It can be done with this website tracking. And as long as we can get that person's qualifications, country of residence, then I don't know, we cannot do a personal data because it's invading their privacy. But two things we can do might be their qualifications and country of residence, because other personal things, I don't think it can go into the public domain. We have to do our old age style of reference checking with our friends and families. That's one good way. Going to the second one, what's the basic idea of identifying that blockchain really works in a particular scenario in the perspective of applying blockchain to a new scenario? I think that was answered by our first implementation of cryptocurrency. In 2009, that itself showed that people were trading online. So if you or me have to believe that blockchain is successful, it is, I think, the cryptocurrency with the best example that we can take. In 2011, we had billions of people invest in cryptocurrency. It was virtual money. China, Korea, the Southeast Asian countries implemented so much money through Bitcoin, and they made a lot of money. But to an extent where some of the reserve, especially I think Australia, because I worked in Australia, I remember by 2012, the government of Australia said you cannot use credit cards for Bitcoin currency transactions because people were overdrawing their money through credit cards. So to an extent where if the US, Australia, Indian, the subcontinent countries have been using, we can surely do believe that blockchain has been successful. And I think the best example I could give is the cryptocurrency, the blockchain, which can be shown as a positive one. And from the recent one, which I have seen as a success, was the transcript storing. I think I watched a movie, might be a couple of weeks ago. I'm sure it's a Tamil movie. I don't remember the name. Kanithan. In that, where they told about how a person's transcript was tampered. So that movie gave me an idea of going and checking how can we overcome this with blockchain. So that's when I researched and found smart contracts can be done, and there are actual real life implementation. I think it's university in US where they have accepted transcripts through smart contracts, and they even accepted students paying fee through blockchain. So that was two success real life examples that I can give. Going to a new scenario, yes, it is. I would say to see if it is being successful in a new scenario is the authenticity. Now, has it been successful? Has it been useful? Has it served the purpose? I think that would be a good way to see if it has been successful. Going to the third question. Can blockchain Ethereum smart contracts be applied on online education like certificate validation and credit transfer? Absolutely, yes. I did a presentation 3 weeks ago to another university in Kerala where I only spoke about education validation, certification validation. It is through smart contracts. So with smart contracts, I would have loved to show you more, but I'm sure I have got less time. But if you all want to just look up smart contracts for education, you have two very resourceful videos where it talks about a student who is going to a health university. She is even looking up if the universities are valid. So I think there are a lot of bogus universities in India. I think it was a Tata consultancy Ethereum video. I think you can look up whenever you can. It did show how the student is even looking up if the college is a bogus university, if it's a valid one. And then what she does is she produces her, I think her HSC certificates to that university through blockchain. And then after her education, her bachelor transcripts get recorded into her digital ID. Then she does her master's. She get her master degree also done into the smart contracts through, I think that was not Ethereum though. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm sure Ethereum can do it. And finally, she even was using it for securing a job. So from the time of your transcript to your job verification, I think we 100% do what we are talking through the smart contracts. The fourth question I can see is, how can we use blockchain-based technology to fight against COVID-19? I think it's a big research area which I recently found. If we currently see the vaccine thing itself that we are having, so people are looking forward, how can we incorporate this vaccine issue, So fighting against COVID is first thing basic common sense. So I would say it starts with people doing their basic things. Now, how can we use blockchain for it? Now, it's a very interesting concept. How do you get people do what they have to do? Now, I think there are a lot of apps that have been now incorporated within the countries, be it India, be it Australia. They have their own tracking apps. Now, yes, that will surely invade the security of the person, but we can fight COVID using blockchain if we have the digital ID of the person. As long as we all are ready to release our digital identity, only then we can come to that extent where we can fight COVID. The fifth question is very interesting, very administrative for me. It's not Federal University, I want you all to correct it. It's Federation University. It's a Ballarat-based university in Victoria. So if you all want to correct it, it's Federation. It's Federation. So if I want people to get it correct, it's Federation. I think it's question number 5, Anna? 5? Yeah, it's Federation, not Federal. Does Federation University in Australia offer blockchain for a doctoral course? Yes, absolutely, yes. So I have been working with one of my supervisor. He is a blockchain enthusiast. He is a person who introduced me to this blockchain concept. So my research currently is in blockchain, but I'm slowly going to move into medical. I am also looking how can we use blockchain for remote patient monitoring. So I have one of my PhD supervisors who has incorporated his remote patient monitoring. Its name is Anidra. If you all want to Google up, it's ANIDRA. I will just put my annotate so you all can look up Anidra. So he's one of my project supervisors. He actually has brought in blockchain and how can we increase cloud scalability for remote patient monitoring. So we do have a couple of opportunities for doctorate in blockchain. Now coming to question number 6. As every node is in possession of the whole data in blockchain, doesn't it lead to privacy issue? No, because there is no privacy invasion here because everybody owns only their data, their own hash function. As long as I think the first video explained how every node has their own, starting with Genesis block, then we have a hash function added to every block. So what happens is only when the hash function is authenticated by the previous node, the next node is accepted or intercepted. So there is no privacy invasion here because you hold on to your data, but there's only one common block or a hash that's being used. So there is no invasion of privacy at all there. Absolutely. The 7th thing is, can you suggest any article or tutorial where we can learn about Solidity language, which is used to create smart contract? As I don't have any idea about the language, and also what are the requirements so that we can learn that we can learn from that language. It's basic Java. So I think you saw the second video. I'll see if I can share my video. It's basic Java functionality. It is a code written with Java. So I'm not quite sure what type of you're talking about Solidity language and any. I might look up some and send it to you all because I don't have anything currently because I have not done any research on Solidity language because I have been only researching the possibility. So if you want me to find some, I'm more than happy to take it on. Just give me a minute. I will send it to the I think to the person who is I think Dr. Jubilant is. I will surely contact him and give him some information on the Solidity language. Do you have any more?
We do have a lot of questions, but due to time restrictions, we are not able to take
Okay.
it online.
Not a problem. Yeah.
And we'll let you know
Yeah.
the questions. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
not a problem.
So thank you so much, Cynthia. I hope this session made multiple components clear and easy to understand. The examples really provided insights into how and why each industry is actually approaching the blockchain technology and how it has grown to such a large extent in the past 9 to 10 years. And it also gave an overview on how this how the smart contracts adds a layer of value to this blockchain technology. And it was really a worth session. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you so much for spending time out of your day to spend with us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I would just quickly say a word of thanks. I really want to pass on my sincere thanks to Dr. Jubilant. He has been given me a lot of motivation to talk to international audience. And I can see I have around 150 participants who have been listening to me. So it's an absolute privilege to be presenting for the short-term program on behalf of the AICTE. And once again, thank you all. Thanks to Tibin, who has helped me do with the small bits and pieces testing with me. I think Anna, if I'm not wrong, thanks for helping me for this, and an absolute pleasure. And it has been a very, very good opportunity for me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Cynthia.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For the kind attention of the participants, the feedback form is shared in the chat. You are kindly requested to fill in the feedback form. And one more note, a test will be conducted at the last day of the program, and certificates will be issued only to those participants who have attended the program and successfully qualify with 60% of marks. So a whole bunch of excellent sessions are actually waiting for us tomorrow. We'll be having a session on consensus algorithm by Mr. Adarsh S from Kerala Blockchain Academy, who is a research scientist there, followed by a session of blockchain in e-governance by Ishan Roy, who is the lead in Tamil Nadu e-governance agency, and Mr. Abhilash S, who will be handling sessions on R3 Coda. So thank you so much for joining us today. Tomorrow we'll start our sessions at exactly 9:30 a.m. Thank you.
Great day.
Kind attention to the participants. The recorded sessions will be shared at the end of the program. Like on the last day of the program, we'll be sharing the recorded videos of these lectures. Thank you.